welcome back to this wonderful podcast. I do hope you're enjoying it. Now we're up to number 4. And number 4 is Jodie Kidd, the most divine Jodie.
Yeah, so a little bit different this week. So we've had rock and roll legends, and now we have former model. What else did she do? She started off
riding horses.
Riding horses, yeah.
She was a polo player.
Yeah, and now she plays around with really expensive cars.
Lucky girl.
Indeed.
God, I've just been watching her YouTube videos. She is amazing. She's such a racy lady. I love seeing her driving that Ferrari. Her shows are called Kid in a Sweet Shop, and they are fabulous.
Yes.
Really exciting. Great passion for her.
Yeah, so her episodes are amazing. We'll put a link in the description. So if you're watching on YouTube, after you finish watching this episode, click on the link for Jodie's channel and check out her show. It is amazing. It's really, really cool. So with that said, shall we jump into the episode?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So this is Pattie drinking cocktails with Jodie Kidd.
Jodie, it's so nice to be sitting in your glamorous pub.
I know. Well, I mean, it's a bit sad because we're not quite open yet. The big day is next week. Yeah.
All right. I'll be coming in or cruising by.
Every day, I hope.
Oh, yes.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be lovely. I mean, for the last year, it's been so sad, that this beautiful old building that normally has lots of people having wonderful moments and celebrations, and just to see it so empty for so long was kind of like, oh. So anyway, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think the walls absorb laughter. And so these
Totally.
walls must be very hungry for some laughter again.
Absolutely, and warmth and kind of like just life.
Yeah.
It's an old building. It's probably maybe 400 or 500 years old, and they're used to having kind of life in them the whole time. And so, especially in lockdown, coming here in the winter, and it was all cold and grey and dark, and normally we have big roaring fires and things like that. So it's like so sad. But anyway, here we are on the cusp of
We're about to break through.
Yes.
I was just trying to remember when we first met, and I have a feeling it was when you were a young girl and we were in Barbados. Mm-hmm. Were you playing polo then?
Mm-hmm. I started playing polo. No, I probably met you before. I started playing polo in my kind of mid-20s. When I stopped modelling,
yes,
I kind of needed to get back into kind of, just living in cities wasn't me, and I started suffering from anxiety, and I was getting a lot of, can I say shit on this one, from the English press. And remember, they all thought that I was kind of anorexic and I was a bad role model, which I wasn't. I was just had terrible anxiety, and so I just needed to get back out to the countryside. I needed to get where I've been born and bred, and that's where I'm most comfortable. And so I moved back out to the country. I needed to get riding again because we were brought up on a farm, and my dad was a polo player and a show jumper. My sister was on, a dressage rider, and so it's in the blood. And I needed to get back on a horse, and there's something so calming and wonderful about being and riding and being around animals and growing my own veg and doing things like that. And I was desperate to kind of leave cities and leave the fame and leave, paparazzis chasing me down roads and, being in some kind of terrifying chase, or leaning over fences of friends' house and, just horrible kind of intrusion. And so that's where I started playing polo, because the only access to horses I could get was my brother's horses, and he was a polo player. So I started picking up a stick, and he said, "Come on, Jodes, I'll take you out. Let's go and have a stick and ball." And I just fell in love with it.
Oh,
But that wasn't until probably my early 20s.
So what were you doing in Barbados? You were living, you had a house, your parents were there
Yes.
in Barbados.
Yeah.
And I remember your father and mother had the most wonderful annual event where they would invite all sorts of extraordinary artists and musicians to come and play on the island.
Yeah, Holder's Season.
Holder's Season.
Yeah.
And it was so glamorous.
It was
And everybody
wonderful,
would
wasn't
have
it?
picnics on the lawn outside.
It's like a Beijing Glyndebourne.
Yeah,
I mean, we
absolutely.
had Pavarotti sang there.
I was there when Pavarotti was there.
Amazing.
It was
It's quite extraordinary, wasn't it?
It was more extraordinary seeing him trying to get into the sea.
Or getting out.
Yes.
Oh gosh, I know. I was just so lucky and so blessed to have parents that had the foresight to hold this kind of annual event that, you know, was everything from Shakespeare to jazz to comedy nights to Pavarotti to rock and roll bands to
It was absolutely the best.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
God, it was fantastic.
very lucky. But every single day I had to put out all the chairs that started becoming really quite boring. I was like chief chairperson.
I see. Yes, there is always the other side, isn't there?
No, it was lovely though, and anyone that got to experience the Holder season will look back on fond memories.
I certainly do.
Yeah.
I do. But Ellen, anyway, thinking about modelling, because I was a model, but much earlier than you, in the 60s. And in those days, we had to do our own hair and makeup.
I know.
There was, no makeup artist then.
No.
So we had to lug our big, heavy bags.
Amazing.
Full of hair pieces and shoes and accessories.
Yeah.
But then when you started modelling, in what period was that?
Maybe 96.
Okay.
But when, really quick, I wasn't kind of slogging around, and I started modelling and immediately, was kind of opening Marc Jacobs in New York. And,
Wow.
And so I went,
Who's your agent?
I was with wonderful Lorraine Ashton at the beginning.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was where, because Lorraine was a good friend with Mum and she ran IMG, and her boyfriend or fiance was Terry O'Neill.
Yes.
Did they get married? I don't think they got married. They were just
They did
together.
get married
Oh, they
eventually.
did.
Yeah.
Eventually. So Terry was out with Lorraine on holiday with Mum, and he went, and I must have been about 12 or 13, and he went, she could be a model. And so kind of planted the seed in Mum's ear. And then when because I wanted to follow Dad's footsteps and become a show jumper, so I did all the junior show jumping, kind of going around my little 13.2s and just having the best kind of childhood in the back of a lorry, kind of trouncing all around the country, doing competitive show jumping as a little person. And then I was going from ponies to horses, and that's between your 15 and 16. And I bought my first young horse, and I was going to bring him up through the stages and then sell him, and this was how I was kind of this was where my career was going to be. And I only had a little pony lorry, pony trailer, and Glenn, remember his very, very fancy name, Glenn, my first horse, kept on rubbing his tail on the back of the lorry because it was too short. So I needed to buy a bigger lorry and didn't have the money, and so phoned Mum and Dad and was kind of like, oh, it's just a pain, and kind of take him off the ramp, and the tails everywhere, and they said, well, why don't you try modelling? Go and speak to Lorraine and see what she says. And so Mum took me down to London to meet Lorraine, and I remember she took me in because I was a very tomboy. Never wore dresses. Gemma, my sister, was much more into dresses. I was kind of always, in trousers, always out and kind of making hides out of, kind of brush and hay bales and things like that. So I was properly little tomboy. And so I was like, oh, and she said, right, you're going to have to get some makeup. I'll take you to the Clinique counter. I can't remember where we went. And she bought my first kind of mascara, and she was teaching me how to put it on, and I was like, so yes. And then off I went to Lorraine, and I did some pictures in the agency and just some test shots, and then they sent them around to everyone, and that was the beginning of my trying to fund my lorry.
How nice to have a reason to make money.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
a good thing about
and a
modelling.
goal.
If you want, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well done.
But I never got my lorry because my career just went off in such a wonderful tangent that for 10, 15 years
You forgot Glenn?
I forgot Glenn. Glenn got sold. Glenn got sold sharpish as I was boarding Concord. And Glenn was like, I wasn't quite. I was very much on the back of the bus through most of my early years modelling. But yes, we were very lucky. We didn't have to do hair and makeup. You know, had the best Pat McGraths, Mary Greenwells, Kevin Arquan,
Wow.
Tom Pesciot, you know, some of the most talented people doing. You literally just turned up. So, I mean, I just take my hats off. I remember meeting Verushka once.
Oh my gosh.
And she was showing me the pictures, I think they're Avedon, of where she painted her whole body like an animal.
Yes, I know.
Extraordinary.
And doesn't she have the longest limbs?
Yes.
I saw her, I met her in New York on the dance floor.
Amazing.
And I just mesmerised. I had to stop dancing
I
and
know,
sit down
so
and just
beautiful.
watch her. Wow.
Amazing lady. And she told me this story, and I don't know if it's true, but it came straight from her, that her feet were so big that she didn't fit into any of the shoes, that she had surgery on her toes to make her feet smaller.
No.
Yeah.
That's
She told me that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that's
did you
taking,
joke on
that's
your
just making
what?
me joke. That's taking modelling to the extreme.
I
darling,
know,
isn't it?
I know. But she didn't come from the easiest kind of childhood in Germany, and
No.
yeah, I believe it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I remember just being completely in awe of you guys that kind of did everything. I mean, we just kind of got everything made up and plonked in front of the camera, and off you go. Then you're back home again.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
But the talent for you doing all your makeup is amazing, and hair.
I remember Twiggy and I being in Italy for Italian Vogue, and she and I just watched each other and copied each other's makeup. So it was fantastic. We were photographed together.
Like little twinnies.
Yeah, but I mean,
Amazing.
that's what we did. We all copied each other.
I'd have loved to have been back then. Kind of like that, how different it would have been to kind of us feeling rather spoiled, kind of having everything kind of laid on.
You should have had a little taster of having to do it all yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even bringing your own accessories, which was always a bore.
Yeah. But you kind of, the funny thing is with modelling, the first thing I remember is I had this wonderful agent called, after Lorraine, called Jonathan Pang, who I spent many, many years with. And, you know, he was like, look, I'll give you one bit of advice, never do your own book, because what you think is a good picture, a lot of other people don't. And so I was kind of thinking of doing your makeup, how actually you would think a look will look really good on you, and you keep going back to that look. And sometimes I've been in the makeup chair and they've done some wild and actually looks amazing, but having the kind of guts to go, right, I'm going to go out here, and you know, it was kind of quite interesting.
Couldn't do that.
No.
I think the wildest makeup that I saw in those days was the one that David Bowie and Twiggy did together, which was a zigzag over their faces.
Oh my God, it's
that
amazing.
Was so
it's iconic.
Yeah, and that was sort of based on Japanese makeup, I think. Start off with the white faces, and then the paint over the top.
It's amazing, the vision. You must have worked together, like so much with everyone.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, we kind of literally were art directed and were styled and everything to you know, and it was kind of difficult because I came from, at school, zero, I was about to say intelligence, but that's not quite right, but zero kind of like exams I got or anything like that. But I was very, very sporty. So I kind of like, you know, loved to be fit and outside, and suddenly then going into modelling, and, you know, and then the makeup artist would put, because I came in at that kind of heroin chicy, wafy stage, and they would put like black makeup all over, you know, like blacking all your eyes out, and, you know, and then the lighting for the shoot was very dark and dingy, and, you know, it was that kind of era of especially shooting in London. And, you know, and it was kind of like so frustrating, because I remember looking at kind of all the magazines of Christy Turlington and you know, all of the beautiful supers being, you know, wonderful Versace. And then suddenly this whole era of kind of really grungy, dirty kind of like, and so it was quite frustrating for us as models not to have any input.
Was it upsetting to be
I think
made
I
up
was
in
too
for that
young
look?
to really understand the consequences of people's, reflecting at that image,
How
because it
old
was
were
all
you
very
then?
exciting.
Roughly?
I was 15.
You were really young.
Yeah, 15, 16, 17.
Really young.
And put into kind of corners of like old dirty nightclubs, kind of like, and I just wanted to be all kind of tits and teeth.
Glamorous.
But yes, and glamorous. And they were like, no, it's got to be all kind of like, you've got to be down like this. And I'm kind of like making very odd movements for anyone that's listening. So it was kind of difficult because, you didn't have that. You just kind of turned up. And so I did at times feel like cattle, really, in a cattle market. And off you get, and off to the other, and off to the other, and off to the other. And
What was the best outfit and the best session that you can remember?
oh, my goodness. There was some amazing moments where Alexander McQueen first took over the house of Givenchy, and it was his first time that he was showing for a couture house, a French couture house, and he asked me to open that show.
Wow.
That was amazing. Then I think one of the ones I really remember was Yoji Yamamoto, and he asked me to be the bride, because it's always a lovely thing when you get to be the bride, because it's normally the closing of the show. And I had this, he said, right, Jodie, you're going to be the bride. And I was like, oh, I'm so excited. And he said, right, come next door, because the dress is too big. We couldn't get it in the fitting room in Paris. So he took me out where I saw this ginormous bamboo kind of structure. And he said, right, I'm going to get pretty much shoes that I'm in like now, big DMs, flat DMs. He said, now you need to be really strong to hold this thing. And they strapped me into it. And it must have been, well, when I went down the catwalk, which was raised, I was covering the first 3 rows on either side of the catwalk of the people watching the show. It was huge. And then I had this ginormous hat. And they had 4 people all holding bamboo sticks, holding the hat up. So it was about 2 feet above my head as I walked down the catwalk. It was kind of one of those just crazy.
Have you got photographs of that?
Yes.
I would adore to see it.
Yes, I do. It was wonderful.
I'd love to see that.
It's hysterical. And people were just like underneath and showing my pants and my great big DMs. It was great. It was so fun. So many amazing moments, because it was such a cool time as well, because it was kind of like, you had Oasis, and you had kind of like this really cool Britannia, Jude Law was filming. You had Sadie, you had Oasis, you had Kate and Naomi, you had the best hair and makeup artists. So it was kind of like this real English.
You were in the middle.
Middle.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was a great time.
And so you were very aware that you were in this amazing time of fashion.
Yes,
at the hilt. It must have peaked then.
Yeah, well,
with all the best models and great designers all
yes,
together.
of course, you
And
had
all the girls,
Queen, John
wonderful
Galliano.
girls. Yeah.
And wonderful models. It was all the Brits everywhere, from Stella Tennant to Kirsty Hume to, Kate, Naomi, myself, Jade Parfitt, Erin O'Connor. There was a kind of like a really big, very tall. All of us are very tall and statuesque. Apart from Kate, she's a little bit smaller than us.
Just a little.
Pocket rocket. So it was a wonderful time. But whilst I was in it, I didn't really understand it. I was just riding the wave. And
but what a lovely wave to be riding.
It was quite a wild
you
one.
knew also that when this stops, you can get back and find a new grant.
Well, it's Glenn. Yes, Glenn.
Yes.
Well, yes. I kind of like, by the time I started having my wobbles towards the end of my modelling career, and then just went, I just can't do this. It just fills me a fear of having to get on a Eurostar or a plane or just I couldn't do it. And I couldn't even leave the front door. It was terrifying. And no one really understood what anxiety was at that point either. And I, went to a doctor saying I'm not sleeping. And then now I understand anxiety, because I wasn't sleeping. I was totally in flight or fight.
Right.
I therefore didn't eat because I just wasn't hungry. I just, so I got myself into this complete kind of panic. And no one understood it. Whereas now it's everyone talks about it, which is
But they must
wonderful.
have noticed you getting so thin and anxious.
the thinner I got, the more work I got, which is slightly worrying, but unfortunately that's the way it goes. And yeah, so it got to a point where I just went, I don't want to do this anymore. And I remember going to a doctor, they put me on beta blockers, and I was just like, this is just not me. Or if I have a panic, blow into a brown paper bag or something, which is like hyperventilating yourself. It's the worst thing you could possibly do. So I went, right, that's it, not doing it anymore. And kind of went on to this next chapter of my life, which was horses and racing cars and kind of, the natural progression of a model, of course.
Now this is lovely, your drink.
Yes.
I'm so enjoying it.
Tequila.
What's how much tequila?
It depends.
Okay, how thirsty you are.
Start with just, a small shot with some ice. And then I'm a great fan of this company. It's called Franklin & Sons. And they do beautiful tonics. And the one that it really just goes so well with this tequila. And I'm a big fan of this brand called Pancho Datos. And they do this wonderful reposado. So it's a lot more smoky. It's been kept in the casket. It's a bit longer. Yeah. So it's almost like a whiskey, rather than it's just it's a sip. If I could, I would just sip it.
Yes.
But with a mix, if it's your first drink of the night, then they do this wonderful mandarin and ginger.
I love tequila as well.
Oh, it's a delicious tequila. Let me see where. They do rosemary tonic water. They do, hang on, I'll read what they do because I've got the thingy. So they do Sicilian lemonade and English elderflower. They do fragrant, like Jonathan Ross. This is definitely working, the tequila. Fragrant guava and Persian lime soda. So you can imagine that with a lovely vodka. Rosemary tonic water with black olive.
Love that. That would be good with vodka too.
Yes, and succulent pomegranate with floral hibiscus soda. So that would also just be, they're wonderful. And the thing is that you don't have to be too kind of like adventurous with your ingredients, because nowadays you can get really good sodas and tonics with all these beautiful ingredients that are already added to them. So you just bring a glass and ice and four ingredients and off you go.
I know. I came across a tonic water the other day and it's soda water with Angostura bitter already in it.
Perfect.
Just a hint of pink. It's wonderful.
Lovely.
Yeah.
See, they're doing it all for us.
I know. That's so thoughtful.
I know. Wow, lovely. Well, chin.
Chin. Now, tell me about your racing, as in car racing.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Have you got a new job, Jodie?
Have I got a new job?
Besides running the pub, you need something else to do.
So I'm just starting a new car show. I very accidentally fell into cars, and I do know how it happened, but it was just kind of like, as I said, I rode the next wave in my life. And that was a friend of mine. I was visiting a friend in New York, and she said, I'm doing this thing called the Gumball Rally. It's arranged by English people. They're really cool, and it's basically like a 5-day rally. Amazing people. We're going to go from New York to San Francisco. I think it was San Francisco or LA, I can't remember. I then did San Francisco to Miami.
Wow.
Really? Yes, it was zigzagged everywhere. So I didn't really drive. I didn't have a huge necessity to drive when I was modelling, because you would always get kind of picked up and dropped off. And so
spoiled.
Really spoiled.
So spoiled.
Like ridiculously spoiled. Yes. So when I moved back out to the country, I was like, well, I'm going to walk 15 miles to the local to get a pint of milk. So got my driving test. I should think only about 6 or 8 months later, I did the Gumball. And then I came back to the UK to do an award ceremony, the GQ Awards.
Yes, yeah.
And I sat on a table with Jeremy Clarkson. I went, oh God, you're the car guy. I said, I just did this rally and, amazing cars. And there were Conan's eggs and there were Ferraris and da-da-da-da. And he was going, oh, you like your cars? I said, oh my God, it was amazing. It's extraordinary, still buzzing off the experience. And he said, well, come on to the show. So I didn't really, I was like, yeah, have another glass of rosé or whatever he likes. And then I got a phone call about 3 or 4 months later, and they said, would you come and do the fastest lap thing or whatever? I was like, to be honest, I'd never really watched the show.
Jodie, I can't believe that this was only shortly after you taken your
driving test. Yeah, I'd never been on a track in my life.
But I suppose in a way you're used to speed.
With horses, yeah, horses. Exactly.
Yeah.
So flat out, but that's one.
So you really understood.
Yeah. So I got asked to come down to do Top Gear, and I'd never seen the show, so I had no idea. I kind of knew that you had to go around a track and do a couple of laps, and then have a little chat with Jeremy. So I was like, absolutely fine. So I turned up, and you get put in a car with the Stig, and they take you around the track. Yeah. Show you where you're going. Then you get in the car and Stig sits next to you just to make sure you're not going to kill yourself. And then they just say, off you go. So I had about 4 laps and I was going, oh, do you know that top corner? Because you have to stop and start every time because it's a standing start. And so they used to wind down the windows, have a little chat and say, oh, whatever, with the filming. And I was like, oh, do you know that top corner? I wasn't going quite quick enough. And they were going, no, you're doing pretty good. You're doing pretty good. And then I said, right, I'll do another lap. And then they were like, right, you've got to get out of the car now. And I said, no, I want to keep going. I can get better. I know I can get better. And so then you have to wait all day until you do the studio bit at the end. And didn't realise, but beat everyone, went straight to the top. Beat JK, beat all these people that have been, proper kind of car nuts. Yeah. And I just went, I really loved it. I loved it. And the Stig then came to me and he said, look, you've got quite talented. And so I went off and got on my own, went up to Goodwood and got my ARDS, which is like a provisional racing licence. So I started doing some track days. And then I did a track day and Maserati were there with bringing, I think, one of their new cars. And so I met them all and they obviously watched me for the day and they said, look, we'd love to send you to Italy to train with our Formula One trainer. And so I went down there and they said, look, we'd really love to kind of sponsor you to race for Maserati. So I then raced for Maserati as an Italian for the next 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was amazing.
Did you?
Yes.
How incredible.
Raced all the bit, we were the support race for maybe 3 or 4 Formula One races. So big, scary tracks and big, scary days with 200,000 people watching.
Wow.
So it was amazing.
So this encourages a lot of adrenaline, I imagine.
Huge amounts of adrenaline. And I thought, right, if I get rid of the adrenaline in a controlled manner around a racetrack, I'm not going to have it when I go to bed at night because I've depleted it and I'm not going to get anxiety. And
this worked? It
yes,
worked.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But anyway, so that was my kind of racing career. And then I kind of stopped. I had Indy. And when I had Indy, who's my little lad, that I kind of like the self-preservation kicked in and it's not about me tearing around on horses and cars and things like that, that it's all about this little chap. Yeah. And so, so I kind of took all the adrenaline things, they took a back seat and just became mum and kind of had a wonderful time. But started getting into TV at this point, kind of doing Strictly's and whatnot, kind of silly shows.
Did you do that?
Yeah, I did. Long time ago.
Well done.
I'm not going to tell you because it was the worst experience.
Oh, was
of
it?
my life.
Oh, was it?
I'm not a very good dancer.
Who persuaded you that you should do this?
I mean, it's a big show, and it was kind of something I love to grab life when things get offered, and so. The beauty of being kind of like someone in my position where you've been lucky and very blessed and you've got a name, that you do get asked to do these shows. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, when am I ever going to learn to foxtrot or to do the samba or something like that? And I was like, and you have the best teachers in the world. just try not to think about the 15 million people that are watching it live every Saturday night. But yeah, so I just kind of went, do you know what? I'm gonna do it. I love it. Why not?
I love it. You're so brave.
Oh, and it absolutely. I was like, what am I doing? It was just absolutely horrendous. Oh dear. Anyway, got through that. But that's how. And then I got asked to do MasterChef, and then it was I fell in love with food from that experience, and that's how I got the pub, was because of doing MasterChef and going, and I got to the final, and it kind of like being a model and being kind of like a sports person. I always thought food was just for fueling your body rather than, the wonderful excitement of what a wonderful dish and journey it can take you on. And so after I did MasterChef, it just suddenly opened up these whole new doors of how incredible food is, and then ended up going to the pub. Yes, I'm gonna have a Michelin
Of course,
star.
this is what you do.
Yeah, restaurants. Yeah. Oh my god.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's a really beautiful village, and it's a beautiful building. Yeah, so I feel really lucky and blessed that we saved it, because it was up for sale and developers were going to buy it and turn it into houses, and so it was very much a kind of a moment of madness of us getting it, and then suddenly, because I got it with two friends of mine that also have never been in the food and beverage industry in their life, and we all know each other from racing cars, and so they came to race at Goodwood, and they said, Jodes, we're driving past, why don't we meet up and have a cup of tea? And I said, we'll go to the Mulberry, which is Chris Evans's pub. Yeah. That's not far from here. And so we were all sitting there, and they were like, God, I'd really love to have a pub. And I said, well, that's really funny, because my local's up for sale. And I said, really beautiful. And I said, should we go and have a look at it? And they said, yeah, let's do it. So we drove past, and they saw the pub, and you can't not fall in love with the building.
Yes, yeah.
And then we took over the lease. And then they said, right, Jodes, over to you now. And I went, I don't know, where to buy a keg of beer? Where'd you buy your beer? I was like, do you go to Sainsbury's? I was like, where do I get staff? I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I was like, do I go on Facebook? I was like, So it was a very steep learning curve of many, many mistakes made. But we've got there. If we can survive a bloody pandemic, then I think we're doing okay.
That was a major test.
That was a major test, and especially when we were still quite young. We had only been open 3 years before COVID, and so so it's been very testing.
And the food is utterly divine, by the way.
We've got a wonderful team in the kitchen.
I just want to go. So often I want to go into the kitchen to find out how he did this or that.
They're magical, aren't they? The flavours.
Unbelievable.
Rob, who's because there's Gavin and Rob in the kitchen, and Gav's our general manager, and he's just been a rock. He's just been so fantastic, and thank God I found him really early, and he's kind of guided me through everything, and I certainly don't think we'll be sitting here without him. He's a brilliant chef, as well as a barman, as well as handyman, as well as front of house. I mean, he does everything. And then we've got wonderful Rob, who is with us right at the beginning, and then he's Hungarian, and he went off to do Hungarian MasterChef, and he won it, and then he's come back here.
Did he win it?
Yes. So it's very exciting. The plans and the food and everything is going to be another level. We just got to get everyone in.
Yes, you will. Everyone will come in.
Yeah.
Everyone will come rushing in.
Yeah. So
definitely.
Yeah, that's one thing, because we've got 2 rosettes. So we've really kind of prided ourselves. Prided? Is that a word?
Prided. Proded yourself.
As the tequila. Prided ourselves on good quality food, and another thing is that we kind of all decided when we got it is that we want to give, we're giving this back to the village. We don't want it to be turned into houses. Too many little villages have lost their little pubs.
Yes.
But then also the staff, we want them all to be local. So we kind of made it was quite tough, but I said, look, if we can get everything within a 20-mile radius, That will be our ethos. So it's all about supporting local producers, local suppliers, local team members, you know, so apart from Rob, who's come quite a few miles from Hungary, but he's allowed. And the wine, of course, is allowed, because got to get our French wine in there somehow.
But sorry, going back to racing again.
Yeah.
Are you going to go back to Top Gear? Are you going to be a presenter? Or?
No, I'm not. No, that ship has sailed. I'm going to do my own one, which is even more exciting. So I'm going to join the kind of YouTube fraternity, and I'm doing my own kind of. It's called Kid in a Sweet Shop, and we're filming it at the moment. We're going to launch it probably in July, but it's a lot of fun. I've been tearing around the countryside in some very beautiful cars.
Really?
Having the best time ever.
Oh, how fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm actually going up on Friday to do another day, and racing at Goodwood on Saturday. So it's great, it's brilliant.
It's fabulous.
It's wonderful, especially to kind of come out of the pandemic and where everything's been so wobbly, and just have a lovely kind of goal, and you know, get the pub going, get Kid in the Sweet Shop going, and so I've got all these lovely things kind of bubbling, which is great.
I'm so happy for you. This is great. What a wonderful series of experiences you've had.
Mental, really.
I love it. Just your version of sort of grabbing hold of life, grabbing hold of anything that appears to you that is remotely interesting, and you grab it and almost eat it up.
Yeah. I think you have to.
Yeah.
You know, it's a relatively short life we have on this wonderful planet, and if you don't grab experiences, then you know it will go. Yeah. Exactly. And so I've always just as you said, eaten everything that's been put in my direction.
But with such relish, you've done everything so beautifully and so perfectly, and you know, with such gusto and.
Yes, definitely. A lot of energy behind everything. I'm like, right, come on, let's go.
I mean, here you are, this most beautiful girl, doing all of these things. Yeah, I certainly congratulate you, darling. Well, sweetie, thank you so much.
Oh, my goodness, thank you.
And I hope that this will be a really successful podcast.
Yes.
And I hope that all our podcasts are going to be successful.
Absolutely.
Because we've been talking to wonderful people like you.
I know. But it's so good to have a natter. And I just love it. I just get in the car, the first thing I do, podcasts or Audible or something like that. I'm listening to Audible at the moment. Oh, it's just brilliant. It's so good. Yeah, just love people kind of just nestling in on people's wonderful conversations. Yes. And totally with you. There are some good podcasts at the moment. Yeah. We did one last year because I love cooking. Yeah. So I'd make Rod lovely lunches every day. Yeah. Have them in the garden, and I'd photograph them. And then a girlfriend kept ringing saying, "Oh, what are you cooking today?" And I'd tell her. And then I thought, maybe lots of other people are bored with their repertoire. Yes. So Matt and I did a podcast, Lockdown Lunches. Brilliant. You know, simple things, beetroot and apple soup, and you know, I mean, fish pies, and those are ordinary kind of things. But unless you get guidance, you get stuck in your routine of getting your chicken, getting your mince, and then you do your spaghetti bolognese or your lasagna. Unless you listen and you go, "Oh, that sounds wonderful. That's a nice idea. I'll try that." Yes. Brilliant idea. So that was fun. Love it. And then this year I thought, we can't do nothing. Yes. Cocktails. So spring and summery. Tequila. Yeah. Oh, my darling. Well, thank you for having me on, and thank you for coming to the moon, and thank you for supporting and listening to me rabbit on for God knows how long.
So, listening to that podcast with Jodie, my God, she's a bundle of energy, isn't she?
She really is. She really is. What an incredible episode. She's had such a wild life.
But she's been very constructive with her wildlife. Yeah. From a very young age, she seemed to know what she was going to do and what her passions were, and she just went for them. Yeah. No, she's amazing. I love that episode. I thought that was great. Yeah. And it was great to visit the pub as well, and although at the time everything was all packed up, now it's all open up again. Oh, it's a great pub. Have you been there since it's opened? Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cool. I've been there 2 or 3 times since I last saw her. Yeah, awesome. I love it. The food is exceptional. Yeah. It's on my list of places to visit, so I will do that.
So, connecting with the podcast, you can do that on all the social media platforms. So, if you're on Facebook, you want to find Official Pattie Boyd. If you're on Instagram, it's Pattie Boyd Official. And if you're on Twitter, it's @ThePattieBoyd. And then on YouTube, you can find these episodes if you look for Pattie Boyd Official. And you can listen on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. And if you're enjoying these episodes, we'd love to hear from you. So please, by all means, leave a review or leave us a comment, and we'll check that out. And in a minute, we're going to finish the episode. And Pattie, in the conversation with you and Jodie, you mentioned about a photo shoot that you and Twiggy did, and
Yes.
You've got some pictures here, haven't you? So
Oddly enough, I do have them.
So if you're watching on YouTube, we're going to finish the episode any minute, but we're going to have a little bonus section. So stay tuned.
I'll just show them.
Yeah,
Just run through with them.
That's it. So you can have a look at those pictures. But next week's episode, who do you think we're going to have? Any ideas? This was a surprise episode. So next week, who are we going to go for?
The fabulous Kenny Jones. Let's do Kenny. Okay.
Cool. So next week we're going to have Kenny Jones. So we will be looking forward to that. We hope you're looking forward to that. Any final words, Pattie?
Take care of yourselves. Be careful. Be mindful. And wear your masks. I think we need to protect ourselves and each other. Here's one.
So what was this?
This is when Twiggy and I were in Italy,
Nice.
and we did a series of photographs for Italian Vogue. They kind of odd outfits.
Bring it closer to the camera.
Queen bee,